Welcome to another episode of Exploring Nevada. Hello, I'm Gwen Clancy with the Nevada Dept of Museums, Library, and Arts. Recently, the Nevada Women's History Project held its annual conference. We met at the Sands Regency in Reno. Our mission was to research the history of women in Nevada so that the contribution that they made to the development of this state can be better understood and appreciated. Today we're in the historic Roberts House in Carson City. This house was built in 1859. And with me today is Dr. Anita Watson, who for our purposes at the moment is portraying Mary Oxborough, who came to Nevada 100 years ago.
It's a pleasure to be here today. I've had people recently ask me about my pioneer experiences. In fact, it started with my grandson Frank, who had a school assignment. And when I thought about it, I realized I've seen so much happen. I've been a pioneer a number of times. I was born in England in 1852. I came across the Atlantic Ocean to New York, and then across by wagon to Salt Lake City, and settled in St. George, Utah, when it was still a small town. I lived there. I married my husband, Mr. Oxborough. We had 11 children, 7 of whom survived. And when Mr. Oxborough died, the church was making a call to colonize and settle in eastern Nevada. And I went to eastern Nevada with my oldest son, Joseph, and 5 of my other children. It was very different. It was an exciting opportunity to be a part of building a new community. It was certainly very different from the house that I'm in today, because we initially lived in tents and wagons, and then as the community was built, we had a farm. My sons took care of me, and it has been an opportunity to see Nevada grow, although it was my own small part of Nevada. And I've seen so many wonderful things. Mr. Lindbergh crossing the ocean in his airplane when it took me 5 weeks to come across in a ship. So it's been interesting and fun.
So, Dr. Watson.
Yes.
You were portraying Mary Oxborough, who came to Nevada very early in the game, 100 years ago, as we said. And this is the kind of thing that the Nevada Women's History Project encourages, doesn't it? This kind of study of historical characters.
Yes. In a way, it's the way the Nevada Women's History Project began with Jean Ford. As an outreach of her women's studies program, she became involved in writing dramas about women's history, and also teaching in the women's study program. And she found that it was so difficult to find material about women, particularly just regular women, women like Mary Oxborough, who was never very famous. Probably the most that was ever written about her in the newspaper, for example, was her obituary when she died in 1935. So you have to dig deep for women's history, and that's what Jean wanted to do.
Okay, and that's what the project does, and it acts as a type of clearinghouse for people who are interested, men or women. You don't have to be a woman to belong to this.
We have male members.
And members throughout the state. You can join this organization. The phone number is, it's in Northern Nevada, although I think there may be a Southern Nevada
branch
number also we'll put on the screen, but the Northern Nevada number is 775 area code 786-2335. And if you are interested in a particular topic, or you may want to study your family more, you can call this number. Mm-hmm. And you were involved right at the beginning. What was the reason for creating this project, and what ways do you think it can best help people?
Clearinghouse is a good description. Jean and her students had gathered a lot of information, but how do you disseminate this information? How do you make it available? And even beyond that, what is available? One of the things that Jean has done with the Nevada Women's History Project and various funds is to survey repositories throughout the state to see what they have about women's history. You have to be creative at getting at women's history. When I wanted to do Mary Oxborough, I was really interested in medicine. She was a midwife and healer, and found her name through the website for the Nevada Women's History Project and took it from there and did more research.
Okay, so there's a website also.
With biographies.
Great, and we'll be putting up the phone numbers. If you're interested in joining that organization, that's great. That's what keeps it going. Pays for a person there to answer the phone, but also can connect you up with all kinds of other people who are maybe interested in the same topics. There is an annual conference once a year. It'll be coming up in March, and we'll probably go back and forth from the south end of the state to the north end. So next year we'll probably be in Las Vegas. We'll give you the details later. But if you are interested in women's history in Nevada, please make this phone call to these numbers, either one, and you can get involved with people like Mary Oxborough. Thank you so much for being with us today. We have more segments coming up. We will be talking with people who were at the conference, the keynote speaker, Barbara Van Cleve, and some other women who are doing women's history. And I want to also mention that the Roberts House here in Carson City, where we are right now, is open to the public. It's open on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday afternoons for walkthrough tours. So please do come and visit this house and stay with us. Thank you.
He realized there was a rider and a saddle on his back, and he exploded. Only in Nevada.
Welcome back. As I said earlier, we're very privileged to have some wonderful women here of different talents gathered here for the Nevada Women's History Project Conference, which takes place once a year. It's at the Sands Hotel right now. And you are Barbara Van Cleve.
Right.
Very well-noted photographer and keynote speaker of this event, which will be passed by the time this shows. However, I want to say welcome to Reno.
Thank you.
And thanks for taking the time now to talk for a few minutes about your work. And you're based in Santa Fe, is that right?
I'm in Santa Fe in the wintertime, and as much as I can be up in Montana at the family ranch in the summer.
I think that's a logical plan. Sounds good.
Want to get out of Santa Fe in the summer.
Well, we have some, this incredible book, beautiful book, and wonderful, wonderful photographs. Hard Twist. Let me just turn it around here. Western Ranch Women. And there's so many wonderful photographs in here, but I wanted to ask you before we get into a few of them, how is it that you became interested in photography, and how long have you been taking photographs?
I was born and raised on a ranch in Montana, and apparently I pined for a camera because I couldn't draw, paint, or do anything else in a little one-room schoolhouse I went to. So my mother and dad gave me a camera when I was 11, and I carried it everywhere I went on the ranch and made photographs. And finally, at midlife, I decided to, at 50 years old, I decided to see if I had any real talent. and tried to support myself with photography, and I have been successful. But the reason I did the book is being born and raised on a ranch, I know who does double duty. Takes care of the house inside, the cooking, the cleaning, the washing. And when I was a kid, churning butter, canning, everything, as well as helping outside, gather cattle, brand, all of that, drive the team for my dad when he was feeding hay in the winter, all of that kind of thing. So and every photograph I'd ever seen, every book I'd ever seen about ranch life out west was always of men.
Men, and probably also the kind of the glamorous stuff that we know isn't necessarily glamorous, but that kind of has that aura.
That's right.
Okay.
You're absolutely
right. So you've got it all here.
So I wanted to kind of straighten out the record a little bit.
Well, let's get right into straightening out the record. And you have a photograph of Molly Knutson.
Molly Flagg Knutson from Grass Valley Ranch over in outside of Austin, Nevada. A most remarkable woman. Weighed maybe 95 pounds soaking wet, and here's a shot of her with one of her prize bulls. She and her husband ran about 1,000 head of commercial Herefords and 100 head of registered purebred Herefords, of which she was very proud, but she can't even look over the back of this bull. And when I was there to photograph her, I was working with a long lens, and she was quite a distance away, and all of a sudden I saw her horse and herself disappear down into a little coulee or draw, then a puff of dust and nothing. And I knew something had happened, so I had to go at a considerable way around to get to her, taking the pickup, and I would never have found her in the sagebrush if it hadn't been for a horse standing there. I wanted to make a photograph. There was Molly, crumpled up on the ground, her dog sitting beside her, Chica, and her horse, Timmy, standing there with his head down. Well, to make a long story short, she had a lacerated liver and about 3 broken ribs and was in very, very bad shape. And it was 3 hours. I had a friend with me who stayed with her because it was in November. It got very cold the minute the sun went behind the mountains. She was in and out of shock. And so I drove back to the ranch to tell them to call an ambulance or somebody to come help her. I didn't know whether she had a broken back or what it was. At any rate, it took 3 hours before they were able to get her. Took her to Austin. It was 7 hours before she finally got to the hospital here in Reno. And I don't think Molly ever completely recovered from that accident. That was back in 1986.
Okay, so this photograph was taken in 1986.
That's right.
That looks like a massive bull.
It is a big bull. That's a fine, fine bull.
Well, now let's jump into, you had another photograph that you wanted to show.
Of Molly or
whatever, your choice.
Well, this is a woman who ranches with her husband and 4 children on the corner of Wyoming, Colorado, and Utah. And in this photograph, I was out working with them and photographing on horseback, and I noticed she had a rosary dangling from the saddle horn. Now, saddle horns have been the cause of quite a few deaths on horseback out west. Horse going over with you, or you get pulled over, rope something too big, and you're tied hard and fast. And that saddle horn does a lot of damage to somebody's interior. Well, she has this rosary wrapped around it, and I asked her about it, and she said, oh yes, her grandmother carried one. She lost about 40 of them out there in this country, and she said, I figure it's safe to ride out here. She said, it's so well blessed, and she had lost 8 of them, she said. It was a wonderful story anyway.
Well, it looks as though that would kind of get in the way a little bit of
Well,
roping.
she's not, you can tell that she doesn't use that rope herself. She doesn't rope, but it can come in handy if there's some sort of a problem. And everybody on that family rides.
Well, let me just ask you one more thing here. You've got this wonderful book here. What's your last project, or what's your current project, I should say? What is it you're working on now?
I'm started a project with a friend of mine. He's a writer, and he's written children's books and books for young adults, and we're doing it on ranch girls between 12 and 14.
Terrific.
I want to get the word out about ranchers are real live human beings who care, who feel, and who are trying to do a good job. And it's a great place to raise children. I know I was raised on a ranch, and I think it's just wonderful. So I want these girls to have a chance to say so themselves.
Great. And in the meantime, until that book is out, well, you're very welcome. And look at this. This is a terrific one, too.
Yeah, that's Mary Davis and her son, Walter.
Okay, this is the book, Hard Twist. And I know it's in the libraries. I know it's in the State Library, because we have a copy.
Good.
And it's in the bookstore. So I just wanted to let everyone there know about this wonderful woman that's in Reno right now.
Thank you.
Gather around. Now, everyone, this is an exhibit of an Ice Age mammoth. Now, long ago in Nevada, these ancient elephants rummaged through springs and stream beds for food.
Imagine at one time, herds of these huge cannibals roamed in what might have been your own backyard. You'd be amazed.
In 1991, I found myself acting director of women's studies at the university in Reno with the opportunity to teach Introduction to Women's Studies, and I also designed another course called Nevada Women on the Frontier, Past and Present. I'm not a historian by training. I had enjoyed traveling Nevada with my family, and then in the official duties that I have as a member of the State Assembly and the State Senate in the 70s and early 80s, and then as a library consultant, and then as a tour director for a tour company. And through all of that, I became very familiar with Nevada and a lot of the people. I was on the Tourism Commission when it was first formed in 1983 as an appointee of Governor Bryan's. And so I truly had an appreciation of the state, and I wanted others to have that too. And so I thought, what could be better than teaching and touring at the same time? And so I combined that in the course called Nevada Women on the Frontier, and I've taught it 5 years now. And but the first one was in 1992. I wanted a part of that to be a history component, and I wanted students to study women in Nevada history and share them with each other. And I went to special collections at the university and said, give me a list of Nevada women that my students can study and do research papers on. And of course, I was wanting them before 1920 and in this quadrant of the state. And basically they said, okay, and they gave me a list, and it was shorter than the number of students I had in the class in terms of materials that they had. And when my students get over the shock of deciding they're going to research someone from a list, and then they go look in the catalog and they don't find any books on that person, they get real nervous. And but we have now identified primary source material and archives and places where people can go. And so students have done a lot of the work that I'm going to share with you tonight, and I'm really proud of that. Well, this all started in 1991 when I began to realize how little I knew and how little any of us knew about the history of Nevada women. Through special collections, we initiated something called the Nevada Women's Archives to gather papers that document the lives of Nevada women and their families and the organizations that they cared about. And since then, we have done that at the University in Las Vegas as well, and we have collected probably close to 400 new collections of papers in the last 5 years that are now processed for the most part and available to researchers. That can range from a collection that has only 2 or 3 sheets of paper about someone that were of special interest to 40 or 50 cubic feet. At the same time, Ron James was starting some new research on women on the Comstock, and he knew I was teaching this class. He sent me an article, a draft of an article he wrote, which later appeared in the Historical Society Quarterly, about women on the Comstock. People had this idea they were hurdy-gurdy girls and prostitutes, and that was it. And he knew that there were thousands of women on the Comstock, and they did all kinds of occupations and played all kinds of roles. And so he asked me to read this and his plan for this book and the people that were going to do the various chapters. And it was wonderful. I was very excited. But I gave it back to him and I said, but Ron, there's something missing. You don't have anyone looking at what women were doing in the community, in public life, in politics. And it's one of those times, I know it's happened to you, when you've said something in a meeting like that and someone turns and says, well, why don't you do that? And so he said, had you thought about helping me gather some things? So I hadn't, but I did. And again, from my background in politics and public life, I thought it would be really interesting to learn who came before me. So I set out to do that. Right in 1995 was the 75th anniversary of suffrage throughout the United States. Ours was earlier because we got the vote in 1914. But throughout the country, the 19th Amendment was being celebrated. And so a group of us decided we should celebrate actually gaining the right to vote. But we needed to find out what happened in Nevada because most of us came from somewhere else. And so we started researching the history of suffrage. That was also the 75th anniversary of the beginning of the League of Women Voters, which grew out of the suffrage movement. And so we started researching the beginning of the League of Women Voters in Nevada. Now, I was trained in the League of Women Voters in the 60s in Las Vegas. That's where I got my experience in how to chair a meeting, how to speak in public, how to research something through league study and issues. And we all thought the league had been started in the 50s. We had heard these stories about someone who came through the state in a whirlwind and organized leagues in Lovelock and Winnemucca and Elko. Lo and behold, what we found is that Carrie Chapman Catt herself, a well-known figure in American history, came to Nevada in November 1919 and organized the League of Women Voters even before the 19th Amendment had been ratified. And that just blew us away. We just couldn't believe that. So again, another group of people got involved in doing more research about the beginning of the League. Well, we had such a good time learning about the history of suffrage, we decided we need to share it with others. So in April of 1995, we put on a drama in the old assembly chamber of the Capitol where it happened. We took some significant events in suffrage. We got 15 people to play characters in history, a couple of legislators who loved the idea of performing up there in the drama. 3 people had been on the stage before as actors or actresses. But the rest of us were doing it for fun. And we put together about an hour and 15-minute drama on the history of suffrage in Nevada as it happened. And that was very successful. And out of all of that came a group of people who said, should we not get together and organize into something that gathers the history of Nevada women and makes it available in a more organized, round-the-clock, round-the-year way, and so we did. And that was the beginning of the Nevada Women's History Project. Let me close with two very short quotes from role models of women for all of us. Elizabeth Cady Stanton, one of the things she said, and I wish we had time to talk about why she said it and everything else, but we don't. It's her philosophy called the solitude of self. And what she said was, self-development is a higher duty than self-sacrifice, and should be a woman's motto henceforward. Self-development is a higher duty than self-sacrifice, and should be a woman's motto henceforward. And Charlotte Perkins Gilman said, believe and dare and do. I submit to you that these women who emerged into public life believed in both of those and are good role models for all of us to follow. Thank you.